Welcome to Off Grid Victory. So I just wanted to talk about today cutting through corten steel container metal to be able to cut through it for the purposes of putting windows and doors and whatnot. And some of the things you're going to need and some of the safety issues that you're going to have to really face in doing this. And so I'm going to just show you the way I'm doing it, some of the materials, the tools that I'm using to do this as safely as I can. And so, yeah, let's go through it. So first of all, this is a shipping container, and we've cut a 48-inch by 48-inch window frame. And of course, it's cut smaller than that. I think I cut it to 47 and 5/8. The actual exact material is 47 and a half. So I have about 1/8 of an inch wiggle room on the frame. And so that's the window size. And corten steel is pretty good material. It rusts very well. It protects the metal inside pretty well. It is fairly rigid, yet it is soft enough to cut through with just a grinding wheel. And so that's what we did here. And the other thing I wanted to talk about the corten steel and the container is, as you can see here, it's rigid as far as the sides are concerned, but once you cut into it, there is give. And it is under pressure when they weld it together, like the seams here. So when you cut, it can buckle and it does shift. So you have to be very cognizant of that. And so let's go through some of the materials that we used to go ahead and cut through that material. So first, let's just go through some of the basic things as well as the safety. So the basic thing you're going to need is obviously a grinder. And this particular one, this one's a Bosch style. And the trigger is off to the side, and it locks in place if you hold it, and if you touch it again, it unlocks. So this is Bosch. The second one here is a Harbor Freight model. I like this one better because it has a trigger here, and the trigger also locks from the bottom here as well. So I really like that. If you touch the trigger again, it unlocks if you put it to lock. And it has also the safety, so if you just push it, it won't actually engage. You have to push this and down as well. So I really like that, and I would recommend that even over this Bosch. And so that is the basic grinding tool that you want to use. Secondly, your grinder, always operate it with a guard on it. Never, ever, ever take this grinding guard off. You could have bad things happen to you if you do take it off. The way I tend to use this particular grinder is I have it rotated as far vertically as I can. Almost, it's not, obviously it's not a 90-degree position. You can get a little bit closer to 90 on the Harbor Freight one. And so the reason why I do that is I tend to run my blades this way. So for this particular cut on the bottom, I ran it this way, and obviously the top same way. And then the sides, I run it this way. And that way, the grinder, the guard itself right here is always protecting myself from all the sparks, as well as the potential breakage in the grinding disc. And so let's go through some of the other safety things that we want to talk about here. First, eye protection foremost. And this particular one is I think a Honeywell product. It's kind of like they're the geeky lab glasses, they do have vents on the bottom and at the top, but the rest of it conforms to your face with this kind of rubber mask material. And they do heat up a little bit, but they are absolutely required to do this type of work because the sparks are going to go everywhere when you grind, especially when you go right to the top here, where now you got, two surfaces for the grinding material to bounce off of and all the sparks to bounce off of. So yeah, you definitely want to use eye protection. The next thing you want to use is some kind of a mask or a respirator. This one's kind of been through a lot, but these things go bad. You'll definitely be able to smell through the carbon that's in here. So that's when you know they're bad. But this offers you really good protection in terms of all the sparks and the metal shavings and whatever material that they use, to make these grinding discs. It'll protect you from that. And the other thing you want to do is wear some kind of a hat or something like that, because you don't want to be like Michael Jackson and have your hair catch on fire, right? not that I use any kind of hair products in my hair, but you definitely want to protect your head and your hair from all the sparks that are going to go flying using a grinding wheel. And lastly, a good pair of welding gloves or leather gloves of any sort to protect your hands. That's really going to save you from the heat as well. So those are the safety things. Oh, and lastly, but not not unimportant, is this particular safety tool. This is I think a Warner product. It's a scaffold. It's a movable scaffold. And this particular scaffold has, I think, 4 levels that you can put these planks on, and the planks also split apart, so you could have one on one area and another one on a different area. Use it almost like steps, as well as wheels that lock. This is a pretty invaluable tool, especially when you're trying to work up there. You want a flat, level surface, and you don't want to slip. You don't want to slip off of a stool or a ladder or anything like that. So you want a solid footing in order to work, and so I would definitely recommend the scaffold. And in terms of actually using the grinding wheel, this is the other important thing that I wanted to talk about. So first of all, there's 2 particular types of grinding wheels that 3 that I'm going to use, but the main cutting wheel is this DeWalt. It's the XR, and they're both metal cutting wheels, stainless steel cutting wheels. And so this one's a Makita, this one's DeWalt. The Makita one just tends to be a little bit better in terms of cutting through faster, and the thickness is the same. It's rated to spin at roughly 13,000 RPM. So the specs are roughly the same, but the Makita just cuts a little bit faster, but I think it also wears down faster. So, you get what you pay for. The DeWalt, I just got at the local box store and big box store, and this guy I think I got online. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is how to use these grinding wheels. So this one has about 5/8 to 3/4 of material from one edge to the other on terms of the radius here, and the normal has about 2 inches or so of space. You really can't go down more than this. But the main thing in terms of using a grinding wheel is this. You can see there's about a 1/4 inch of wear, a little less, 1/4 inch of wear there. This is a brand new one which doesn't have wear, but you can see that. So in terms of operating the grinding wheel, you never want to go past a few, I like to say 1/4 inch to 3/8. And the reason is because especially this particular material that you're cutting through is under load, and it can buckle and then it can bind, and that's when you have problems. So imagine you're using the grinding wheel as such, and it binds. Well, it could just stop the grinding wheel, which would be great, but that's the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario is this wheel continues to spin and it binds and it fragments. It cuts this disc and parts of it shrapnel off, and that's really bad news. So you don't want to run this wheel any more than just, like I said, a 1/4 inch to 1/3 of an inch in as you're cutting. You don't want to run it more than that. Like for instance, if you ran it all the way in here, and the grinding wheel has a tendency to cut better, obviously, especially if you're rotating it in one direction. Let's say I'm going this direction, and if you're going in this direction and you're putting pressure on it, obviously you have more rotational force, and it would work better if you put more of the material in. But really avoid that situation. Use as little material as possible in order to cut, but don't put it all the way in, because you could potentially have a hazard where it shrapnels off because you've bound the wheel and it frays, and then it just falls apart. And then potentially you can have a really bad accident that way, especially neck injuries and sometimes even death. So be very careful using a grinder, use it with the safety equipment that's on the grinder itself, like this tool, like this shield that it comes with. Don't ever take it off and leave it off when you're grinding, because obviously, you know, people like to use grinders in a different way. In fact, you should always try to use it in one direction. Like I said, for these particular horizontal cuts, I'm using it horizontally, and for the vertical cuts here, I'm using it vertically. I'm never using it like, you know, like this, or, you know, like this on the top. I'm always using it like that. But either way, in either case, it'll always protect you, because the guard's always facing you versus facing away, which you don't want to do. And so that's what you want to do in terms of working the grinding wheel. And lastly, the different types of grinding wheels. This one that I'm using now is really just to sand down, to shave the large metal filings. So for instance, I'm going to show you this guy, which I just cut. So you're going to have a lot of metal shavings like that. And so the big guy was going to be used to get rid of those. And then finally, after you get rid of all those big guys, you also want to use something like this, just a regular hand file. And the hand file will just knock off the smaller guys. So that will be knocked off by this, and this will be, you could knock it off with this, but easier to do it with a big grinder. So yeah, you want to get rid of all the small shavings just to save your hands, as well as to make the insulation of the windows a little bit better and easier. So yeah, this is my container that I'm starting on, and like I said, these are some of the equipment that you're going to need to cut through the cordon steel material for windows and sliding doors. So that's it. Alrighty, shalom.